Jazz Live with Ali Ryerson. Welcome to Jazz Live, Ali.
Thank you, Vince.
So you're playing tonight with some of the studs of San Diego jazz with Mike Wofford, Rob Thorson, and Duncan Moore.
Yes, I never quite thought of it that way, but now that you mention it.
Yeah, they are some of the big players. Have you had much history with these artists?
With Mike. First of all, I've known Holly Hoffman, and we've been dear friends, and we actually play in the group Flutology together now for several years. And Mike is the pianist arranger for that band, and he's my favorite piano player. And I don't say that now just because of the fact that we just did this concert together, but he is phenomenal.
Right. So, is this your first time in San Diego, or?
No, not at all. Actually, Holly has brought me here numerous occasions. When she used to book the Horton Grand, I came down first then, and got introduced to San Diego Zoo, the Gaslight District, and the beautiful weather, which continues. And then I've played a couple other gigs that she has booked over the years, one of them in Balboa Park.
That series. Jazz in the Park series.
Exactly. So,
who did you play with for Jazz in the Park?
That was actually with Joe Beck, and it was in the small theater.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure if that's the exact same venue as the out. I mean, it's not the outdoor one.
Right.
Okay. And yes, I played with Joe Beck then, and I've also played up in La Jolla, the Athenaeum, several times, and Flutology played fairly recently the Neuroscience Center in La Jolla as well.
Well, then it's a welcome back to San Diego.
Thank you. Yes, it is.
So where do you call home then?
My house is in Connecticut. I visit it every so often because, like so many musicians, I'm on the road quite a bit. And I was born in New York, grew up outside of the city as an adult. Of course, I moved into New York, as so many players do, and I lived there for a lot of years. And, a lot of my career began, thanks to being in New York. So.
So do you have much of a musical community around your home, or?
Well, yes, I do, but at this point, that's not why I live there. I live there because I love the area. Actually, when I was young, it's on a lake, Candlewood Lake, and when I was young, my folks actually bought a summer house on the lake, so it kind of reminds me of my youth.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that then. Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing in music and how you were introduced to music?
Sure, Vince. Well, my father, Art Ryerson, was a great jazz guitarist and was very good friends with Mundell Lowe, who was at the concert. And anyway, which was a total pleasure. And he was originally with Paul Whiteman. He was a featured artist with Paul Whiteman for several years. He became a top studio player in New York for decades, for 4 to 5 decades, and recorded with many of the greats. And I have 3 older brothers, and we were all musicians, and I started on the piano when I was 5, flute when I was 8, and we were all into jazz. Even though I studied classical and have worked quite a bit in the classical field, I always kind of gravitated towards jazz and the whole jazz community, and all of my recordings are jazz recordings. So that's my life.
So were there any jazz artists, especially flute players, that were kind of influences early? Why'd you choose the flute, and were there people that influenced you there?
Well, actually, I wanted to play the trumpet because 2 of my brothers played the trumpet. My mother would not let me. She said, I recall, you have to save your lips for something else. I was 8 years old. I wasn't really sure what she meant. Anyway, I don't remember why I chose the flute, but I took to it immediately, and I fell in love with it, and it's been kind of a love affair ever since. My early influences musically, really in terms of listening to recordings and things, really were much more jazz trumpet players and piano players. Bill Evans, Miles Davis, Chet Baker, Art Farmer. that was really more of the what I was listening to, mainly because my brothers were older and they were the ones who had the record collections. I of course did listen to Herbie Mann as a kid, you know, and I used to like to play along with his records, mainly for the rhythm section, because he always had you know, fantastic rhythm sections, and you really didn't need the music to, you know, be able to just play along. And of course I listened to Hubert Laws and everything, and but you know, aside from the flute players, I can honestly say that my biggest influences were on other instruments, piano and trumpet specifically.
So that's interesting you should mention Herbie Mann, because I know one of the things that's been written about you, and you've recorded Brazilian and Latin music
Yes.
before. And was Herbie Mann anywhere influential there, or that because I know he was big in that, and you mentioned rhythm section, and that music
Right.
is just very rhythmic.
Right. No, he was certainly to that, and various. I mean, he was kind of in, you know, one of the early ones who got into world music, really. You know, various ethnic cultures in terms of his recordings. But no, the reason why I got into the Brazilian thing was there back in the early '90s. I actually lived out in California, up in the Monterey Bay area, and I was playing quite a bit with several Brazilian players, Weber Iago and Elcio Melito. Elcio Melito actually started the Tamba Trio, and he was really part of the first influx of the Brazilian musicians to New York, and that whole bossa nova movement, really. Anyway, it was my good fortune to hook up with these guys and work a great deal with them, and I'll never forget the first time I sat in with them. They said, "What do you want to play?" And I just thought, well, what's something, you know, that we're obviously all going to know. So I called meditation, and it was an amazing experience for me, because of course their sense of time is quite different, and it was halfway into the tune where I finally found one. Anyway, after years of playing with them, of course, I had a much better idea. I mean, it was a great education, but it was through that collaboration that my Brazil album for Concord Records was born.
That's fascinating.